Oh, hi, Bolles. All right, first, I just want you to tell me your story from your earliest memory all the way up to today. And then I really want to drill in on the time period or day where you decided to be an entrepreneur rather than work for somebody else. And then I want to see if you can teach me something new about that medical device arena.
Born and raised Southern California. Never lived anywhere else. Raised here in Orange County. Well, I've lived in the same 50 square miles my whole 46 years. I went to Long Beach State, which is about as far away as I thought, but my earliest memories are all South Orange County.
Is Long Beach State the dirt bags?
The dirt bags are their baseball
Yeah.
uh, nickname.
So I remember in Indiana, I wanted to go to Long Beach State, which seemed like it was on the other side of the world. And there's Fullerton, two pretty good baseball schools, and they were going to the World Series on a regular basis and stuff like that. And yeah, but I remember going into Lids, like the hat store, and seeing dirtbag hats in Indiana.
It was great, but that was the most north I've ever lived. I've lived in San Diego to Orange County until college, and then after that, moved back here. Quickly as I could. Long Beach is the last city in LA County on the southern tip. Once you get to Seal Beach, I think that starts Orange. And I really enjoyed Long Beach as a city. I loved the state. I met my wife there. I met friends that I still have. Can't say enough good things about Long Beach State and Long Beach in general. That when I had the chance, I wasn't going to move any more north of that. I want.
Yeah, it starts to get too crowded anywhere north of Huntington Beach in my mind.
I mean, from childhood.
Yeah, because what I want to try to do is I want to try to pinpoint what experience or personality trait from your past dictated whether you were going to be an entrepreneur or not.
Well, I mean,
Like, what kind of kid were you?
I had a very parents. I was raised in affluent areas with lots of kids, good schools, good teachers. I never had any, yeah, adversity. I mean, I never really had any sort of nefarious or, no one ever took advantage of me. I never had any issues with older, you know, adults or anything. I had I grew up here and I didn't have a lot of the things that you hear about kids going through like that. I had a really happy childhood. There was presents under the tree every year, and we were, um, raised Catholic, Christian, but I wouldn't say we went every Sunday. But I was raised with faith, and yeah, I haven't experienced a ton of negativity growing up. I had a lot of family, a lot of cousins, two sisters and brother. Yeah, I mean it was great. My earliest memory though isn't. I was trying to think about this. I don't know if it's necessarily a good one or if it shaped in any way what I do now, but my earliest memory I can think of is being the last kid picked up. And I don't, I mean, I do remember
How old were you? It was a big
this.
deal.
This was the earliest. I mean, kindergarten, yes, or it could have been school. I'm not sure. It was a kinder care.
Hmm.
You know, so I guess it was before. And I don't. I mean, it didn't happen all the time, but it happened enough to where I still remember it. And, just watching each kid leave.
Well, I'll push back a little bit. I think that something like that happening at 4, 5, 6 years old is more impactful uh, on the final product, what you are today, than say, if I got jumped in an alley when I was 23 or 24. Like, all right, hey, I'll heal, I'll get over it, whatever. Life goes on. I have responsibilities I got to focus on. But whenever you're 4, 5, 6 years old, like that's probably equivalent to, something much more substantial whenever you're older. So I could see how that would, there's a reason it stuck with you,
Yeah, I guess
I
so.
guess.
Because I haven't thought about that. I guess that would. I mean, if I had to go back to just the very earliest thing I can think of, that would be it. But I mean, every other memory I've had. I mean, the vast majority of all my memories of childhood have all been enjoyable, positive, healthy.
Was good. So what kind of kid were you growing up, like say middle school and high school? Like were you the kid that other parents said stay away from, told their kids to stay away from, or were you
No,
the Were you the partier, the reserved one, the jock, the class president? What kind of kid were you in?
So as early as I can remember, I was not a confident kid. I was good at sports and I had friends and everything, but I never wanted. I shouldn't say I didn't want attention, but I never went after it. But I was very polite, respectful. I was a good student. I did what I was told. For a long time, I was an only child, and I had a ton of supervision. My parents were very involved, and I wanted to make them proud. And I did. I did my homework and I got good grades. I didn't really start to, if you call it, anything like that, until well into high school. I never got in any trouble when I was younger, prior to high school. And even in high school, I didn't get in trouble, but that's when I started, you know, drinking with friends and doing the things that high school kids do. But I would I would call myself as a child, or growing up, competitive in sports, competitive in school. But yeah, really had low self-esteem.
That's shocking to me. If you were decent at sports, and I mean you're a good looking guy, you got a beautiful family, you got all the makings of being a confident person. You think it's just in your DNA that you can't
Yeah,
do it,
no,
or
I mean,
what?
I am confident in I'd say a presentation setting where I am trying to sell my products to a hospital or a value analysis team or even doctors that know more about the product and the topic that I'm talking about than I can still be very confident in those settings. But in general, I would never I would never order room service if it was just me.
Yeah,
I
me
just feel
neither.
like I'm not good enough for room service. I can just go. I can walk down there and I don't need someone dressed in almost a tuxedo looking guy, knock on the door, come in with white linens and present my meal to me and lay it all out. Like that's, I can go downstairs and get my own meal. I could never do that.
That's the way I
Um,
always say I can park my own car.
yeah, yeah, I can't. Now, if my wife and my kids are with me and they want to order room service, I don't even think twice about it. That's what they want. Great, no problem.
I don't think I've ever ordered.
Yeah, I don't. I
So you
when
feel
I
like,
buy when I buy things for myself, I
uh
feel very guilty.
so don't they call that imposter syndrome?
Uh,
I think so. Like you don't deserve the success that you have.
Yeah, yeah,
Whether it's hey, I don't deserve the family that I have, or the business that I have, or the money that I have, or whatever. Imposter syndrome. Like, hey, I'm just a kid from Long Beach. Like, what? I'm not good enough for this stuff.
I think having low self esteem in a way, I probably have too much of it, but some of it is a good.
Well, yeah, I mean that's called being humble, probably, right?
Yeah. Um. If I hate the posture of someone thinking that they're,
Hmm.
but I think it has helped me. It's made me work harder.
I think it's good to be humble, but so do you feel like you're only like that in, like, if you were alone in your bathroom, you feel like that, or is it just whenever you like go out into the world?
No, no, I feel it when I'm alone.
Okay,
Sure.
that's interesting, man. Because well, I think you should be confident, just for what it's worth. I think you should be very confident. Like I said, you have a beautiful family, you have a beautiful home, you have awesome business, good looking guy, in shape. It seems like you're doing well for yourself, and so I mean, you should be proud of that. And it's none of that stuff comes easy, even if some of it was handed to you. And a lot of people say this even about Donald Trump, whether you're a fan or not, I don't care. Him getting $1 million loan or whatever the number is, or $1 million, passed down from his dad.
Yeah.
He turned it into
Yeah.
billions.
Yeah.
Come on. And so,
And lost it and then turned it around again.
yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think that you should be proud, dude. Not proud. I think you should be confident because of the product that you've generated.
I have moments that I feel proud of my accomplishments, and mostly about my daughters and
Yeah, yeah.
my wife and what I've been able to
Oh yeah, and your kids are great.
support. Thank you. So I do feel accomplished in those areas, but the low self esteem comes into play when it's about me. Like I just don't like. Maybe it has a financial component to it too. But I don't. I hate spending money on myself. I
Yeah,
feel
me
like
too.
I don't need whatever that would. I mean, there's Amazon deliveries multiple times a day, every day to my house. My daughters have way too much, and they, I send them to private school because I think education is important. And even though we live in a great area, I don't. I think our public school that my oldest was going to was awful, and um, it costs me thousands and thousands of dollars every month to send them to the schools down the street when this one is a California distinguished, apparently really good school, whatever. I mean, I have no problem spending every dollar I earn on my family, but I have a big problem spending $100 on anything that I.
Well, so do I. I'm the still eat SpaghettiOs and Lunchables. Like I'm such a simple dude. And like the nicest thing I have is my car. But also the reasons that I got it is I don't want to pay for gas. Right. So I think that there's probably a difference in what you're trying to say. You being more of a simple creature and not needing something is different than you not being worthy of it.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. I hope I'm worthy.
well, I find it interesting that because say in school, if what do you call people that determine like a counselor, a school counselor is going to tell you like, hey, you should lean towards this profession or this profession because of your scores or whatever. I think that, the way you're describing yourself is totally opposite of what the, not stigma, but stereotype of entrepreneurs are. Because it's such a cutthroat world. You got to be this, you know, confident go-getter, eat what you kill type of person to be an entrepreneur. So what made you lean towards entrepreneurship versus well, actually let's rewind a little bit. What sort of jobs did you have? What was your first job?
Let's see. So my very first position, my very first job was working at a frozen yogurt store, and I was in high school, probably sophomore, junior year, or whatever. Um, and it wasn't a chain; it was a privately owned. I think they maybe had one other shop. I'm not even sure about that. It might just be just. On day one, he gave me the keys to the store.
Good luck.
Day one, he showed me how the machines work and kind of how to like swirl the ice cream. But he was there for a couple hours and then took off, and he just said close up when done at 8 or 9 o'clock, forget when we closed. And so I didn't need the job. I just thought, kind of don't even quite remember how I got it. It was just something that I thought would be fun to try, just to do. And I remember the very first day that he gave me the keys after we closed, I called every person I knew, and they all came over and we turned the machines on and had like a party in them. And we're just like throwing ice cream at each other and stuff. I mean, I was completely irresponsible, and I totally uh I would never hire me at that time in my life. It was awful, but I mean, but it was so much fun for me. I didn't have the job long, obviously, 4 months, but the guy always hired high school kids. He never quite learned his lesson because I came back to that store with someone else that was working there when I got invited to come over. It was kind of a known thing, but that was
So
my
were you
first job.
fired?
Sorry?
Were you fired?
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. That's fired. I gave out anyone that came in, even
And that was
people.
day one that you threw the party,
Yeah, it's hours after I put the uniform on.
and you were fired day two.
No, no, no. I had it for a few months, and then I don't even think I was fired specifically for doing something wrong. I think it was that I kept calling. It was my shift, and I would call in. I can't make it or whatever because there were so many other things that were important to me at that time. I just think I had just got in the car and I was attempting to try to get gas.
And you were 16, 17
Yeah,
years old.
I must have been 16. Again, I got a car on my 16th off. I think I just got my shifts covered, or I called in sick, or I didn't do it. And eventually, they just couldn't rely on. And uh, I don't even quite remember how I know I didn't turn in that.
What other jobs did you have until or
So
all the way up to
my step
before you start your own thing?
my stepdad was an interior designer, and he owned Grady's Draperies here in Rancho, Michigan. Or
Rewind. So your parents divorced?
oh yeah, that was. I don't remember living with my mom. So growing up, I had, um, you know, 4 parents, 2 moms, 2 dads, 8 grandparents.
Nice.
They made it super easy on me. I would never claim divorce as some sort of reason why I didn't reach anything, or my parents were, they just didn't,
Yeah.
it just didn't work out for them. And the people that they remarried are great.
Yeah.
I have relationships with all of
Mine
them.
are the exact same.
I love that all 4 of them.
Did they live close?
They did.
So
Yeah.
did you
Oh
go
yeah.
back and forth, or what was the schedule like?
When I
That's just
was
curious because
younger,
I had a
yeah,
schedule.
when I was younger, I went to my dad's every other week. So 4 days of a month. I think that was because obviously I was going to live with my mom and I was going to go to school. So I lived with her most of the time. And then,
He lived in a different district.
yeah, but but it was very close. So, my mom and stepdad lived in Mission Viejo when I was doing this every other weekend thing. And my dad lived in Dana,
Okay, so 20 minutes.
just come and pick. And that carried all the way. That program was pretty consistent all the way up until high school. And then on the weekends, I didn't want to go to my dad's, or I wanted to hang out with my friends and do stuff and go to the beach, surf. And then I also was really into water polo in high school. So we had, weekend competitions, and he would come to see me and all that. It's just, once I got a car and everything, I wasn't going to see him as religiously as I used to.
So me and my sister, so my parents lived in neighborhoods that were right across the street from each other. And so we would spend 2 days with one, 3 days with the other, and then 3 days with the other, and then two, and then three, or then two, and then three. And so we would just go back and forth and back and forth, back and forth, which was thank God it was like that. And, thank my mom and dad for doing that, because it's hard for me to imagine not seeing both my parents. I would say after 2 years, you have enough in both closets
Yeah.
where you're not taking stuff back and forth and stuff like that, So, anyways, yeah, that was.
So after that, my stepdad's interior designer, owned an interior design store, and on the side he opened up this place that just did blinds. It's called Blind Guy. That was the whole thing. It's silhouette with a guy with the sunglasses on. That was their logo or whatever. And it's called Blind Guys, and he would buy truckloads of vertical blinds. That people don't really have them anymore, but you pull the thing and they kind of all go like this. They're just big long slats.
Yeah.
The vertical blind. He would buy truckloads of them from seconds from Macy's or Sears or whatever something was wrong with them.
Yeah.
And missing pieces or broken balance or, something. And they would just drop off hundreds of these long boxes, and I would open them up, go through them, replace whatever parts I needed, and then we would sell these blinds. And I don't know what he paid, but the markup was crazy. At that time, I think we were only charging $69, but he probably got them for $5 or something. And then this was in high school, so I was probably 17 at this point. This was junior, senior year. Where I made my real money in that was installations. So that wasn't part of our business. So that was just I would do. So people would come in, they would buy the blinds, and then I would ask them if they wanted help installing, and I would charge 20. So if they bought 4, that's $100 for me, and I could do that in hour and a half, whatever, weekends. That was a fun job. That was pretty cool because he obviously let me do whatever I wanted with the install.
Now, growing up, did you?
I was a terrible installer, by the way, too. A lot of them fell down. I didn't know what to do. I was anchoring into drywall.
No
refunds. It was a bad.
No refunds.
They would call the.
So, was your stepdad a model that you wanted to follow of owning his own business? Like, did you appreciate or even notice that as a kid, or was it just like, hey, yeah, he has a job and it's his own thing, but
it's interesting.
You just kind of grouped it into having a job.
Yeah, it's interesting because he did have his own business and he worked it with his father and his brother.
Not selling blinds.
No, not anymore. Their dynamic, my stepdad's dynamic with his brother and father and their business couldn't be any different than the relationship that I have with my father and my biological father and my brother. Theirs was filled with all kinds of finger pointing and negativity and fighting and internal turmoil. It was nothing that I really wanted part of. I did like the freedom that he had because he didn't really have a boss, but I don't know if I even recognized that as. Yeah. I do remember my stepdad working very, very long hours. And I don't know if all of that was work, looking back on it, because he had, I don't know if he got off at, 3 and went golf. I have no idea.
Yeah.
But I do remember him leaving early and coming home late and working Saturday, because that's, as a interior designer, a lot of your clients work. So Saturdays was the only day that they had available too. So I do remember my stepdad really working a lot, but I wanted no part of, of that business. It didn't interest me as far as interior design. And like I said, it didn't seem like he enjoyed it. I, um, After I got out of high school, I went to Long Beach State, and I didn't have to work. My dad made it very easy on me. He paid for my tuition. He paid for my rent. He paid for whatever I worked because, and I don't know.
What did your pops do?
He sold medical supplies. So
Okay, so he was doing that
yeah,
when you
yeah.
were
So at first he was a distributor, meaning he worked for a company called Owens and Minor, which is still around today. They would stock products of manufacturers and sell it to hospitals. So if a hospital needed something right away, it would be stocked. And he could get it to them within hours. He buys it from someone like myself that's a manufacturer, marks it up, sells it to a hospital. He did that for a long time. He was West Coast regional, whatever,
he's doing well.
and he was meeting with manufacturers every day. That's how he became an independent medical sales rep, by meeting with these manufacturers and figuring out how that part of the business worked and then representing them. So once he got enough manufacturers to represent as a sales territory, he quit distribution and worked for himself.
So you had two entrepreneurs
Yeah, both that.
as templates.
So with Long Beach State, I did not have to work, but I had many, many restaurant jobs. And those I got fired. Those I got fired from all of them. And the reason why I got fired was because I didn't take it seriously at all, and I didn't need the job. I was doing it for extra money because, again, I had a very hard time asking my parents for things. I was very well aware of how much they were already, how easy I had.
Yeah.
And the idea, my dad gave me $600 a month after a room and board. 400. Well, I'm sorry, I take that back. After tuition in school, I got $600 a month. That had to pay for rent, which was $400, and that had to pay for
Food,
everything else I
gas.
wanted to do. I had $200 a month basically he paid for my gas separate.
Oh, okay.
Gas was separate, so I didn't have to pay. But I had $200 basically of discretionary money to go out, eat, fun, whatever.
Yeah. Beer drinking money.
And yeah, exactly. And I didn't have, it's not, confidence is the wrong word. It's not, self-esteem is the wrong word too, but I could never call my dad and ask him for more money. And not because of him. He probably would have said, how much do you need?
Right.
So I would have these jobs at Ruby's on Seal Beach Pier. I worked at Claim Jumper. I worked at just different restaurants throughout Long Beach. And it was a lot of fun because my roommates would work at restaurants, and we would go to each other's restaurants, and it's kind of, the rule of you had to somehow get us for food. Like that guy had to get me, and I had to get him, and we would get caught in the process, or we get caught later, or whatever it is. And my roommates and we got let go from all kinds of different restaurants, all scattered throughout Long Beach. But that was just part of it. It was fun, and I didn't really need the money. That's not why I was doing it. It was more of a fun thing. And at one point, there was 4 of us in the house, and 3 of us worked at the same restaurant, and that was a disaster. I don't know how they, but it's fun.
So do you think that, me growing up, I think everything I use today, lesson wise, I learned from baseball and then my jobs up to this point. I don't remember a single thing I learned in class. Teamwork, responsibility, adversity, failing, being able to pivot, being flexible, blah, 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 right? All those things are transferable to entrepreneurship, having it figured out about you. And then I guess where I lack is like maybe being organized, stuff like that I was supposed to learn in school, but I didn't. And I could go through 100 different lessons I learned being like a cart boy, or enterprise rent-a-car, worst job in the world, working construction at night, selling DirecTV in a Walmart, and then just the experiences having to brush my teeth in a Taco Bell bathroom. I didn't have a place to stay. But there were a lot of things that I use today. What do you think? Either the frozen yogurt experience, having to figure it out, somebody not giving you a list of how to do stuff, right? And you just have to figure it out, or working at Ruby's and dealing with, customers that are mad, or, being able to play chameleon a little bit, probably talk to the elderly couple different than you do the high school kids that come in
Sure.
and order water, any upselling techniques or anything like that. What were some of the lessons that you learned in those jobs and experiences?
I'll be honest. I think the job where I learned the most was the job that I got right outside. All these jobs I've talked about already.
They're all during school.
Yeah, and I don't know if they taught me much, because I didn't take them seriously, and I called off my shifts all the time. And I remember, I still have it. It's actually filed away. I have a paycheck from Ruby's for 2 weeks' work that was under. They gave me a check for $1 and change, because I must have checked in, checked in and then just checked out and then went home or something.
Okay. Well, could that be a lesson in itself, though, is to show up and take it serious? Do you feel like you show
No,
up
I
and take
do.
things
So
serious now because you didn't then?
no, there were things at that time period of my life that I still showed up for every time and took very seriously. At school being one of them, classes, water polo being one of them. Um, I still, it's just that those jobs weren't a necessity. They were more for fun, and if I got paid, I had some extra money, but it wasn't something I needed to do or that I valued at all. So I honestly, I don't think those jobs taught me much. They said how the restaurants work, and I saw other people take it very seriously, and how waiting tables is an important job, and that you can actually make a decent living if you had to just waiting tables. I had, at that time, there were servers that I knew that were, making $150 a night, and that was, 98, whatever. I'm 21. That's, if you're, you're making $600 a week off tips, that's pretty great. But no, so when I graduated Long Beach State, I went to work for a company called Judge Built, and the owner was Steve Judge, and it's a great name. Yeah, he's a great guy. He again, he owned his own business, a carpet cleaning business, and we did hotels, and I learned how a small business worked. I learned how entrepreneurs work. I learned how workman's comp and payroll and liability insurance and everything from him. I learned a lot in college, but I learned more working for Steve Judge in the first 6 months than I did all through school. Just the reality of how business works and relationships work. How it's not really what you're selling, but you're selling yourself for the most part. I think that's when I really learned that I wanted to work for myself at that point. And that took me all through, it took me well after. I worked for him pretty quickly after that, but 6 months after college, I worked for him. A year after that, I realized that I didn't want to work 9 to 5 and clock in, because at my very first job, I've never had a job where I've never had an office that I had to go into and be there at a certain time. I've always had the sales territory. I've never had a real desk except in my house. It's always been a sales territory, and it's always been Southern California. So I've been driving from San Diego to, San Luis Obispo, Bakersfield, since I was 24 years old, 46 now.
So you've never had a guaranteed salary since you were 24 years old?
So
or do they pay some sort of base or something?
I had a salary.
No. Ever since you got done with the carpet cleaning business, you've never had a guaranteed salary?
Not really. So after that, I worked for Steve for 4 years.
Okay.
And my biological father, he was at this time already doing independent medical sales. His partner, her husband, became very successful in real estate, and she did not have to work. And Dad called me and asked if I'd be interested in selling medical supplies and working for him. And that point is when I made that switch from carpet care to selling medical supplies. I mean, I had a negotiated kind of like deal with my dad, but we didn't have a salary that was being paid. We were just making commission, and he would pay me a certain amount, but I would get, bonuses and things like that. So I've never had a set.
Yeah. Yeah. It's always eat what you kill.
Yeah. And now, I mean, dad retired years ago, and even before dad retired, he was, semi-retired. So, but yeah, it was, if I sold something, I made something.
Yeah. That's interesting. So Steve Judge, is he still in business?
So he passed during COVID. Yeah, it was tough.
Did you stay in contact with him all these years?
Yeah, I did. Not obviously. I mean, I worked with that guy Monday through Friday and some weekends for 4 years straight, and it was me and him, and then we had our crew. So
Oh, okay.
I worked with him, and on the weekends, he lived in Rancho Santa Margarita, super close. I had my first condo in Ladera, and he had a pool in the backyard, so I'd bring my dog over there. He let my dog swim in the pool.
Nice.
So I would see him, I mean, Monday through Friday, but then I would see him, Saturdays and Sundays. But he passed in COVID. He had COVID. He was in the ICU, and he just didn't make it, didn't pull through. But I learned more working from him.
It's funny that I'm so anti-establishment. I have had similar experiences that I could point to 3 or 4 6-month periods where I learned more than, in what?
Yeah.
Experiences cost me nothing, and school
Paid me for.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So I told somebody the other day, I wish there was a school where it's like nothing but experiences, and I would love to send my kids there.
I always thought you got to go to. When I was young.
The experience, though, right?
Yeah. No. Well. No. I mean, when
you were younger,
when I was younger,
thought,
I figured you have to go. If you don't go to college, all you got is a high school degree. You
right.
can't. You can't do it. Now I feel like you 100% have to go to college if you're going down a path of where you need credentials, right?
If you want to work for somebody else. That's what I tell my son.
If you want to be an engineer, if you want to be a psychologist, if you want to be a doctor, you have to have those credentials. You have to meet those requirements.
Yes.
In order to do that. But if
you want to do the rat race.
Yeah. I mean, if you want to go into sales,
corporate world.
Yeah.
Where they have a requirement. Hey, you need a bachelor's degree.
Yeah, they just don't even look at you.
That's what I tell my son, that, like, look, you have 3 options. One, you can go work for somebody else, which is great. A lot of people do it. 5% of the population works for somebody else, and that requires college. So you have to go. Well, at least in my family, or in our house. So we require college if you want to go work for somebody else. If you want to work for the family business or start your own thing, college is not required.
Yeah. I don't think it is. I mean, especially if you want to go into the trades, which we need so many more of that. And they're probably making somewhere around 100, 200 grand, somewhere in there. If you want to be a real good plumber, or you want to be a electrician, or, something that people need that think are being, looked over, and people aren't really. I think we need more of that. I think we need more of that. I look at you, but I also look at college in 2 ways. One, for those jobs which are a necessity that you absolutely need it. But I also, I want my kids to go to college, and I want them to, my oldest is 16. She's a junior in high school, and she's worked incredibly hard through school. And she's going to graduate Santa Margarita Catholic Private High School with above a 4.0 cumulative average.
So she'll probably be able to go anywhere she
it's very difficult to get into,
except Notre Dame.
Yeah. Even SDSU. I mean, San Diego State probably, just because it's so impacted. I think the acceptance rate there is in the teens, the 13%, 14, something like that. But I also look at, I had so much fun, I enjoyed it so much. Kind of look at it as a break before life starts. I mean, if she's worked so hard, so much harder than I did in high school. If she graduates in 18 months, if she were to, after this, go into some sort of trainee program or some sort of internship that leads her to whatever she wants to do, and then just starts that at 18 years old. I mean, which great. It's not like it's a
But it's
bad
4 or
thing,
5
but
years
she could have the 4 years of just before life starts, before
forever.
responsibilities, before all your bills and before your family and before all that. It's just kind of to be on your own, but basically you're subsidized by your parents, or to be on your own, but have that safety net just to enjoy life a little bit before all the responsibilities and all the tough parts of life really start.
Yeah.
I would like that. Obviously, it's not crucial. It's not necessary, but I would like them to have some time where life is fun and easy.
Yeah.
Before everything starts to get hard.
Yeah, I can go along with that. Yeah, I mean, because once it changes forever.
Yeah, you can never go. You can go
Responsibilities.
back to college, but you're never in that time period of your life where you're not weighed down by so much other responsibility. So I like the idea of them having a break and having a lot of fun before it gets tough. I mean, I don't know if college, I hope they get more out of it than that, but I loved it, and I have such great memories of it. And I would have hated to have gone to work after high school and not experienced that. Like I said, I know college helped me become who I am and where I am now, but scholastically, I don't know if it really
Yeah,
played a huge
college is
part.
more of an experience. So like you said, and again, things that you don't learn in the class, I mean, just being organized, being able to show up on time repeatedly for something.
Yeah.
There's a lesson in that.
Yeah.
That you don't understand while you're doing it. You just do it. And then it serves you later in life. Meeting deadlines, which obviously she's already great at now, but on a larger scale with maybe less one-on-one time, where your classes are much larger, where you have 100 people in an auditorium versus, 17 in a high school class. And living on your own, and actually, maybe she has to pay the electric bill, or, writing checks or whatever. Like, there's going to be, experiences in there that will serve later in life, where somebody's not holding your hand 24/7 to, through life. So, yeah, I mean, I like college. Um, I hate that people feel like they have to do it to be any sort of success, or, in life, but there are great things about it for sure.
Yeah, I truly do hope they both go.
I loved it. If I could rewind, day one of college.
Yeah, if I knew obviously if I knew then what I know now, like everyone says, I wouldn't skip college. I would take those 4 years, even if I got a bigger head start, or I was able to buy real estate earlier, or I was able to do whatever. I still value those 4 years of living with my friends.
Yeah, and to even take a victory lap, go 5.
It was just it was so much fun. The part that I will look back on forever, that I enjoyed.
Okay, so your mentors were your pops, your stepdad, and Steve Judge. That was the tripod of the trio of mentors. Yeah,
business influences.
Okay, so in this podcast, I interview a lot of people. A lot of these conversations go the same way, trying to pinpoint like what the pivot point was, and it's interesting to see that there are hundreds of ways. Well, I haven't did hundreds of interviews, but there are many ways to all get to the entrepreneurial starting line, I guess. Right. And some have mentors, some, do the family business, some had to do it, or like I interviewed a lady the other day, Stephanie. She runs Key Life Insurance Services, and she's a Vietnamese refugee. And she was in a boat at 7 or 8 years old in the middle of the ocean for 4 straight days in like a canoe floating in the middle of the ocean, and finally made their way to Malaysia or whatever, where they just ate rice for an entire year. And for her, like, it's more natural being an entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Like we had to make everything ourselves. I've never relied on anybody else, whether it was for clothes or whether it was for food, for anything. Why would I rely on somebody for a job?
Well, yeah, Stephanie's story is a real entrepreneur story. Your story is a real entrepreneur story. Mine,
well, I don't think there's real, not real. There's just many ways to get there. and that's what I find interesting, is that you're not destined, you have a choice. You have, no matter your upbringing, whether it's great or whether it's absolutely horrible. And, the funny thing is that, you said that you grew up, wonderful life, wonderful family, wonderful everything. Stephanie said the same thing because she didn't have anything to compare it to, right? Hey, we didn't know we were poor because everybody around us was going through the same thing. You had deck of cards, so did we. We cut out the fronts of cigarette packs as playing cards.
Yeah. Like, yeah, I guess.
So, she had a great childhood, and, and she showed incredible. So there's this one thing where when they first got to America, they saw a mattress for the first time ever. And she was like, and as a kid, she thought that money grew on trees, unlimited food in America. And there was a third thing. But when she saw the mattress, they all looked at each other like, we were right. This is heaven. Like that's crazy, huh?
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what I mean. When I say a real entrepreneur, I guess I mean, my path to entrepreneurship was a lot less treacherous. It was a little easier than that. I worked for Steve for 4 years, and then I got that call from my dad asking, what I thought about working for him and selling medical supplies instead of carpet care. He at that time he had, manufacturers kind of lined up that were paying him. And again, his partner had left. She went a different direction, and I kind of filled her shoes. I more or less walked into a working business. Now I've had to keep that go. That was 2006.
Well, that's 90% of the thing, though, is like capitalizing on an opportunity when it presents itself.
I've had to keep that going, and every manufacturer that we've had back then, except for one, has left, and I've added new. So I mean, I've definitely.
So your book is cycled.
Yeah, well,
it's turned over.
What
all
happens
the way.
is, as an independent rep, you contract with medical manufacturers to represent them in a certain geographical territory, and none of those manufacturers can compete with each other because there would be a conflict of interest. So I represent different products, completely different products. None of them overlap. But they're most of the time smaller medical manufacturers are the ones that hire independent reps. So I don't work directly solely for one company. The larger companies, the 300 really larger companies, will just hire direct people to work solely for them.
Right. So you're kind of a broker.
When these smaller, so I'm not a stocking distributor. I don't manufacture anything. I'm the sales rep for these.
So you're a mercenary, salesperson for hire.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, so if I sell something, I make something in specified zip codes. But these smaller companies, when they get really successful and they start taking some market share away from the competitors that are really large, they will acquire the smaller business, and then they let us. Or I've been let go from lines just from, inactivity. Like, let's say, I have lines that take the vast majority of my time because I have the most business.
Right.
I have,
best commission structure.
Yeah, I have I have other manufacturers that I don't make nearly as much commission. And so I'm not able to spend as much time with them. And at some point, if they feel that they could be more successful with someone else representing them or the representation, then they'll just make that. All my contracts are, basically 30 days. So they'll just send me an email, give me a call, depending on our relationship, and they'll just say, thank you for everything you've done, but we're going to go in another direction. So 30 days from this point, you're no longer with us, and up until then, I will get sales. I will get commission on the sales that I make. So that two really ways of losing medical manufacturing lines is if they get acquired, or if they just decide that they would want somebody else to represent them.
Right. Okay, so you learned what business was from Steve Judge and how it worked, kind of behind the scenes stuff. And then you join your pops, and he teaches you all of this stuff. And
yeah, he teaches me the medical sales business, how to sell to hospitals. And, Steve Judge was a very small business. It was me and him. We had 15 trucks, 20 employees, whatever. Now it's just my dad's retired, but at the time it was just him and I in our repping business. But we manufactured with very successful corporate companies. It's not small business.
Right.
It's these guys, not $300 million companies, but let's say $30 million. So things like that. Which had CEOs and CFOs and national sales directors and regional managers and all that kind of stuff. So, our business, my corporation, my business isn't like that, but the company that I work for definitely are. So my dad had to show me how to work with
C-suite type,
those people,
right?
those manufacturers, those businesses, rather than just Steve and I trying to figure out how to clean carpet.
Okay, so let's dig into medical device sales. So tell me exactly what you sell.
I try to. I really, what I'm good at selling and what I like selling is disposable, right?
Such as
Blood pressure cuffs or warm air blankets or PIC lines, something that gets used on a patient and it gets thrown out. Because I don't have, like, I really don't. I don't have a pay for a company. I don't have a car allowance. I don't have a cell phone. I don't have a salary. If I contract with these manufacturers and I get a commission rate, let's say it's 7%. If I sell $1 worth of product, I make 7 cents on that. So I like carrying disposable lines because
recurring.
it touches every patient. Hospitals order these things through their distributor or direct from me, but they order them all the time. So I have some security there. Like, I'm making consistent
recurring
money.
revenue.
I have other lines that are equipment, which is a bigger check, but it's not necessarily.
You don't buy an MRI machine every month.
Yeah, right. So I mean, they'll buy that. I'll get commissioned on it, but I don't get any more money until I sell another one of those machines. If you convert a hospital on steam sterilization pouches, they got to put all the instrumentation into these pouches and sterilize them, right? They're using pouches all day long. I'm making pennies, but I'm making pennies every day. So there is some sense of
pennies make dollars.
There. Yeah, I'll take that. I got no problem. All money. So I mean, there is some security there. I do get some sense of, I'm going to be able to feed my kids without having to sell that next piece of equipment.
Yeah.
And a lot of times when you have disposable lines that you successfully get into a facility, that hospital doesn't necessarily want to switch. It's not convenient for them. So you typically have it for a while, unless you pick the reason. Who knows? Relationships or whatever. But, you usually get to enjoy those disposable sales for a while.
So walk me through a typical day. I'm putting out fires, employee fires, somebody's cat died, or somebody needs to take a vacation or out of town, or a problem with a customer, or whatever. I'm just constantly putting out fires, I feel like. And I think that most standard entrepreneurs probably share that with me. But because you guys, you don't have a bunch of employees.
Brother and I, for Bolles built for my company.
Okay. So what is your day typically? Walk me through a day where you go see a hospital, or,
So
how do you know what they need? How do you know what they don't? Are you, sitting down and, having exploration calls with them, or what?
I will both. Typically, I will try to schedule it. If I'm going to go up to LA or I'm going to go down to San Diego, I'm going to try to schedule at least 3 appointments to see at least 3 facilities, and hopefully more.
That you already work with, or that you want to work with?
For the most part, yeah. So I mean, the manufacturers I represent, particularly one of them, there's probably not a facility in Southern California that isn't buying something. So for that particular line, I want to sell them the rest of my catalog. I want to sell them everything else. Like, if they're buying one thing, there's 6,000 other products in that catalog that is an opportunity for them to buy. So I will, I always have, if they want to see me, let's say for education, let's say I sold them product a month ago, it's come in, they want me to come in service it. They want me to show their staff how to use it properly, why it's important, how to use it, why you're doing it. For the most part, sometimes you just have to tell them why it's necessary, because for them, it's an extra step, something else they have to do, and they're not getting paid any extra to do this. They're getting paid for their time. So I have to, sometimes explain why, they're doing this and why it benefits them or why it's important. While I'm there for that in-servicing or whatever it is, if I'm in the department, I'm definitely going to try to, sit down with that director, that supervisor, whoever asked me to come in and show them some.
Yeah.
So I'm always trying
Capitalize
to,
on the FaceTime.
yeah, I'm always trying to add on. And, I make it a very big point that if someone calls me, asks me for a sample or, wants something, I don't mail it in. I don't have customer service ship it to them. Like, even if they want me to come back multiple times for education on something I've already sold them,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I run to that appointment because I'm bringing other stuff with me. The
Right.
most success I've ever had is when I'm in that office with them. I don't have a ton of success when they ask me for a quote, send them a quote, move on. I mean, that certainly happens too when I have relationships with people that I've been working with for 18 years. Yeah, 18 years. So a lot of them, if they need a quote, I'll just send it to them. But if there's an opportunity that I can find for me to physically be in their department, even if they didn't ask me to, that's my goal. I sell way more physically being there than not.
Yeah.
I think that's something that a lot of reps starting out should capitalize more on. I mean, the idea of me living in Orange County and driving to Panorama City isn't my favorite, right? But if I can get in the department for whatever reason, even if they didn't really ask me to be there, like I'm driving to Panorama City. I'm doing that every chance I get to try. I'm just more successful that way.
Ever since COVID, a lot of things take place over Zoom and stuff, and I just, I prefer in person. I don't know
Yeah.
if I'm old fashioned
Well,
or a redneck or what.
no, I think it's more that you're selling yourself more than your product.
That's true.
I
That's
think a
true.
lot of my customers, I work in sterile processing department a lot, SPD, and all the techs, all the managers, supervisors, directors, educators, I try to do a really good job by them so that when they need something, even if they don't know if I have what they need or a solution that I may or may not have, that at least I get the call. Like I'm in their thought process to see, well, maybe Ty can. And you can't do that. You can't instill that in somebody unless you've already helped them find a solution and you're physically there, because it doesn't work any other way.
So how we approach our business is that we have a group of customers that buy one thing from us, and then we look to invest in companies that that same group of customers buys. Let's say we have a group of customers that buy peanut butter. Like, hey, we should start a grape jelly business because we already have the people that buy peanut butter and jelly are already customers of ours on the peanut butter side. Let's sell them jelly, right? How similar is medical device to pharmaceutical sales? Like, have you ever thought of like, hey, we'll pick something basic, not OxyContin or anything stupid, something
Yeah.
I don't know, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just some pharmaceutical product. Could you sell it to the same customers that you have relationships with now or that you've had with over the last 20 years?
So, and the reason, when I say that, it's because I've never worked for direct pharmaceutical jobs are direct positions, right? They work directly for that company.
Or do they?
GlaxoSmithKline, you pick it. I don't think they hire independent reps. I think that's a full-time thing. When I was in college, it was a great job. I've known people that graduated before me that went to work for those types of companies.
They're making bank.
And yeah, right. But there was always a ceiling. So a lot of them, let's say, I don't know what the ceiling was, but let's say they, no matter how hard they worked, no matter how much they sold, they weren't going to get paid $1 over 200 grand a year. So by October, they would just stop working
Yeah.
because let's say they maxed out. So which is kind of cool too. They'd have the last 2 months of the year off every year.
Well, and that was before like the new laws and stuff too.
Yeah.
Like I remember people going on exotic trips and,
Yeah.
because they were taking doctors and stuff like that until they changed that law.
Yeah, there was a lot of that.
The whole Purdue thing kind of changed that, right?
Sure. I probably would have explored that or gone in that direction or done something like that had I not went to work for Steve right away out of school. And then had I not got that call, or who knows, maybe I would have taken over Steve's business. Who knows? If my dad didn't call me, maybe I would have gone to work for a pharmaceutical company. I just had other opportunities.
Okay, so they're all W-2
Yeah.
employees.
Yeah. As far as I know, I think so. Uh, and knowing what I know now, I mean, unless I was forced to, lost my lines or something like that, I love it. Just the time, not having to be so micromanaged.
Yeah.
Being an independent rep is, I mean,
You can spend a couple hours on a
I
podcast.
I'm realizing in the last few years how lucky I am to have this role or this position or this life rather than having 2 weeks a year off and working 9 to 5 and checking in with X amount of doctors a day and putting all the time that they have to put into just paperwork. It seems like such a waste to me. You could be creating more opportunities. Just all the internal bureaucracy of working directly for a company. They just have to do a lot more work as far as just internal work, not sales.
You're grateful that you were able to earn all of this. You know, luck is funny that the harder you work, the luckier you get. So honestly, you make your own luck. So what kind of shirt is that? I like that logo.
This right here,
Yeah.
this is one of the lines that represent a company called Health.
Nice.
It's my That's the one line that I've had since day one. I'm still with family-owned company, or was. They got acquired just over a year ago. So that's been a little bit of a nail biter, but so far so good. But that was a company that was started as an independent repping company, like my brother and I, or like my father and I,
And
for
grew
what
it,
we
huh?
do. And then they started stocking,
Oh,
and
okay.
they've done such an amazing job. It's a wildly success story, that family.
Do you have any thoughts on the UHC,
Hey, what, sorry?
United Healthcare, UHC CEO and everything? Is that
I think I mean, I don't know any insider, baseball on that. I just know what I heard on the news, and I think it's tragic. I don't know what role that particular guy uh, had. I mean, I hate insurance. It's miserable. It's way too expensive. My oldest daughter has type 1 diabetes, and I deal with insurance all the time, and it's always a problem, always a headache. Every January they increase my premiums like crazy, but I don't think in any way, shape, or form that you know that got murdered was responsible directly for anything. I saw an interview that was with a close friend of his that said that he didn't really have anything to do in his role that killer was supposedly going after him for. I think it was tragic. It's horrible.
yeah, yeah, insurance it can be rough if you don't have the right representation as far as like an agent or broker or whatever, and you've not done any sort of education yourself, right? Like you have to dig in to insurance, the nitty gritty of it, the fine print, and understand what you are buying. And it's pretty moldable. I mean, I don't know about the healthcare. I'm more on the commercial side of things, but and then as long as you are not in the thick of it where you're having issues or your family's having issues, you can look at the product by itself and you say, okay, like this makes sense. I understand why they don't cover asbestos, right? But if you have an asbestos issue, you're pissed that they don't cover asbestos and insurance is the bad guys. So I'm not an apologist for insurance by any means, but there is an element of self responsibility to know what you're buying instead of going through the motions and then being mad that it didn't go your way.
I agree.
You know what I mean?
There's a component of that. My frustration primarily with insurance is that, like, if my daughter didn't have type 1 diabetes, I would have 99% less interaction with my insurance.
Yeah.
So, but because she does, insurance usually ends up covering everything that they need to with the policy that I have and for what my daughter needs. It's just a tremendous amount of work getting them to do it.
Yes.
It's not on.
Yeah. It's like dealing with the government. They're
So
not.
even though the guidelines of my policy and what's covered and what's not, it's always hours of phone conversations and submitting documentation to get them to cover what they said they would cover.
Yeah, it's good. It's just not efficient.
Yeah, so they'll end up doing it. You just can't expect them to do it on their own. You have to fight for your policy, I guess, in a way. And every year, every January, it kind of sucks because everything goes back to zero, where they need pre-auth stuff, insulin that I've been buying for my daughter she was diagnosed at 11, she's 16. All of a sudden needs another pre-authorization form. Everything needs to be resubmitted every January. It's just ass, but I mean, I can get it done. It just takes away from it. It's a whole day of my life and then all of her supplies, like she has an automated insulin pump on her arm, and she has a continuous glucose monitor. All those things need to be, I guess, re-prescribed and re-registered. And is it on the formulary or not? And it's always, every time I go to order it in the beginning of the year, they always want to charge me 800% more than they did in December. And then I have to just go through all the motions of going through my doctor, my pharmacy, and my insurance to get this covered again. Even though,
where do you get your coverage from?
Blue Shoe. No,
is it? But you just go direct, or is that
I
covered California?
No, I think covered California is basically like Obamacare, right? That's the government type of medical insurance. I go through a very nice lady who I've been working with my medical insurance since I had to buy medical insurance.
But is it a personal policy?
A family policy. So
okay.
All four of us are on the same policy. My 2 daughters, my wife, and I.
Have you thought about running that through the company?
I mean, I write off my premium.
But is your company the holder of the policy? It should be.
It doesn't have anything. I don't pay my premiums through my business. I pay it on my own.
Maybe just look into it, or you can even talk to my guys and they'll give you advice. You can stick with the lady that you're with, but they could give you some advice and say, this could save you money on this, or this.
I'm all about saving money because they increase it every 12 months. It goes up $200 really, every year. It goes from $1,200 to $1,400 to $1,600 to $1,800 to whatever. Every year it's like a standard $200 increase.
Well, I'm sure by now too, you know exactly what you need. Hey, make sure that this is, and then show me before I sign on the dotted line that this is.
Yeah, I mean, it's all about, for us, it's all about managing my oldest daughter, because everyone else is, luckily healthy.
Yeah. So
and she's got a curable autoimmune disease that, unless advances happen in this, she'll have it for the rest of her life. It's like forever.
What? So do you have any other opinions on the health insurance? More so not from your personal life, but just business wise. Are you empathetic or an apologist for, doctors and hospitals and stuff like that? So yeah, not the insurance space, the health space. Or do you, I don't go to the doctor. I don't trust them.
Yeah.
Just because I don't know what their incentives are, what they're getting paid to do, why they recommended this or why they recommended that, what sort of kickback is coming their way.
Yeah. I wish there was more transparency in the financial aspect of healthcare, right? So on the insurance side, absolutely. And also when you go to the not the doctor, but let's say you have an ER visit, or you have to go to the ICU for something, or you have some sort of hospital visit. I mean, there is just a list of line items that you're paying for that insurance usually kicks in and takes care of. But why that song and dance? Why do we have to do that back and forth? Why do you have to charge me, whether $10,000 and then have my insurance company pay for $8,500 of that, and then I have to pay, for my deductible and whatever it is. It's so complicated that people, at least for me, I just look at the total of whatever I have to pay and then, figure out how to pay it. I don't dive into every line item and figure out, what percentage of that was covered or whatever. So the insurance side, I mean, it is what it is. I just don't have the time or the mental capacity to spend one more minute on insurance that I already. It's just tough for me because it's so important. It's so vital for my daughter.
Yeah.
And it's such a time suck having to deal with.
Just take your lumps and bruises, and it's a
It's
necessity.
just a fixed dump cost, I guess, for me. But on the hospital side, I mean, I couldn't be more respectful and more appreciative of what they do. I mean, they've just the invention of insulin has obviously saves my daughter's life every single day.
Mm-hmm.
She has a really great supportive team at Chalk here in Orange. What I think is a great endocrinologist. His name is Dr. Mark Daniels. He's very responsive. You email him, he emails you back within 24 hours. And their team there is great at Chalk. So they have educators that really help. And they have this one lady who's a saint that will help you navigate insurances. So
Okay. Like
when all this
liaison.
stuff happens in January for me every year, she's my first call. I got to say, I need this documentation sent here. I need this documentation. I need Mark Daniels to send out another thing. And she handles all of that for the
It's
most
awesome.
part very well. And I lean on Chalk and their endocrinology team a lot. And I can't say enough about them. But in general, with the hospitals, they're so big, and I don't even know what it remotely so ignorant to what it would cost to run a UCLA medical. I mean, the scope of it
But it's
and the
outlandish.
amount of patients and the clinics and the specialties and the surgeries and dealing with
Even the
state and
admin.
federal. I don't know. I'm so happy that they're there. I just appreciate it.
So you want to hear a fucked up story? So we have a company called Bill Guard, and it's medical bill review. And so it's an industry that should not even exist,
Right. Yeah.
in my opinion. But there is, say, a doctor prescribes a ointment for like a work comp claim. He or she will bill $750 for this ointment. Now on the work comp, like, hey, we only pay $17, but they'll still bill $750. That $750 bill comes to us. We mark it down to 17, get the doctor to agree 17, and then we get a percentage, like 25% or 27% of the savings from 750 to 17. Now that industry should not even exist. The doctor should just charge $17, but they stick with it on the off chance that they don't check their bills and they just pay $750. So we've had circumstances where the insurance company does medical bill review, like Travelers does medical bill review, and um, the surgeon overbilled dramatically, and Travelers ended up making more than the surgeon did doing the surgery.
I was just gonna say 25% of the difference is more than the bill.
Yeah, yeah, it's crazy, and so yeah, I mean that's one of our companies that does that, and I don't even think that industry should exist. It's a shame that it exists.
But it's a good business.
Yeah, but I mean, still, for the overall health of
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, but
the right thing, I think it
yeah,
shouldn't exist. Like, there's a more efficient way to do it. So I have another question. We have another company called Medisys 360, and we do durable medical equipment, crutches, wheelchairs, braces, even stuff like so we do DME and we do rehab stuff, or physical therapy, PT. You Is that something that you could sell to the doctors? And you say, hey, you know what? I also represent Medisys 360. If any of your patients need crutches or boots or any of that stuff, give Medisys 360 a try.
sure, yeah. So I wouldn't sell it to a doctor because they're not going to care. I wouldn't sell it to the actual clinician because they're going to find their crutches from Central Supply in the hospital. So, I mean, in order to sell a Me Too product or something that
We call it
is
ancillary services.
generic or something that, that probably they could buy from 100 different manufacturers, typically it's going to be under contract. So like Cedars-Sinai is going to be part of any hospital. They're going to be part of what's called a GPO, or a group purchasing organization. And they want to be as compliant with that GPO as possible, because if they reach a certain compliance level at the end of the year, they probably get back, or they get significant discounts by being on that product. So if a manufacturer is part of that same GPO, it will entice that facility to buy from that manufacturer, and manufacturers have to compete to get on those contracts. So products that are crutches, unless you have a crutch that is so much better and technologically advanced than any other crutch out there, and you have to have a very specific obvious reason why they're going to pay more or buy off contract or do something like that. Most likely they're just going to buy their crutches from their major primary dealer, their primary distributor, the one they get most of their supplies, because it's just a crutch. It's hard to say why your crutch is so much better than someone else.
So we do it with like municipalities. So like the city of Huntington Beach,
Okay.
for example, is a client, and they utilize Medisys 360. So when they have somebody on workers' compensation that needs crutches or needs physical therapy or whatever, person in charge of the claim, the adjuster, say, hey, they'll order this from Medisys 360 or whatever.
So they're selling whoever made that deal with you guys, you would want to find that equivalent position in Irvine, in San Diego, and whatever. You wouldn't go to a doctor in Irvine and say, this is the crutch that you should be using.
Well, I guess what I'm trying to find is, does it always have to be employer driven? So I want to get out of the employer driven stuff and, just if my daughter had to go to the hospital and get crutches, who makes the decision where to get that crutch from? Or like just personal stuff.
Yeah.
Not
So if you go to the emergency room, right, because you broke your leg and you're going to get discharged, but you need crutches, they just have it stocked somewhere in their storeroom. And the emergency room director and the educator and the person in charge of the ED probably didn't make the decision on which crutch they were going to stock. Those have probably been there forever. And then if they get switched out, I don't even think that the ED director would know it unless they got switched out for an inferior product that was like breaking in half when you put weight on it or something like that. It's just, that's not on their radar. That's not on their plate. That's just that's the hospital value analysis, purchasing, procurement department will decide, on products of that importance level, if you will. I mean, other things that are much more.
So we do radiology and neurodiagnostic testing, home health care, durable medical equipment, orthotics and prosthetics, acute rehab coordination, transportation and translation, and physical occupational therapy.
So there's probably a lot of specialty products in those categories that an end user would have say over.
Okay. So do you think that there are different groups that dominate each of those verticals with the hospital, that they're on some sort of program or under contract to where it's that facility or doctor is incentivized to send business that way, whether it's efficiency or whether it's some sort of discount or markup or whatever?
Yeah, sure. So hospitals will choose products based on price, based on contract, but also based on effectiveness and the ability to supply it. So if a manufacturer is constantly having supply issues or back orders or whatever, and the hospital can't rely on them to have consistent product, I mean, they'll move. Even if you're on contract, they'll move pretty quickly. Because, I mean, if you can't supply people with basic medical products that they need, they're not going to.
There's a dam up everything.
Yeah, so I mean, they're going to. There's so many reasons why hospitals will go with who they go with, but in my experience from what I sell, it's based on price, contracts, and quality, I guess. I don't know what would be hard to kind of put a 1, 2, 3 importance level on that. I don't know if quality is always the right choice, but it really depends on how important the product is. So if you're talking about...
Well, here's a question for you. Is there anything nefarious or juicy or dramatic that the general public doesn't know about? Whatever you're comfortable with sharing.
Yeah, no, I mean, not...
Because when I look at it, maybe I've seen too many Netflix shows where the healthcare industry and doctors are so bad and everything, but I just feel like you even said, that quality is not always, number one priority. Then price, but is that price because they're looking out for the customer? Or is that price because, hey, I can buy it lower as a doctor or a facility, and then we can mark it up and it can be a revenue generation?
Yeah, a lot of hospitals are businesses. A lot of ASCs or surgery centers are owned by doctors. Those are all businesses. They're all making money off it. I mean, they're helping, but they're also there's someone in there to watch their costs and to make a profit. I'm more of, I mean, I work in hospitals and I represent manufacturers, but I'm also the general public. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure there are nefarious things that happen in my industry. Um, I have never I've never been part of one. I've never really been able to be in a position to offer that type of deal to somebody. I mean, I'm a local sales rep. You know what I mean? So, but I mean,
And you're
all the
selling
documentaries that
quality and price.
I'm selling,
Are there
I wouldn't say price for the most part, because a lot of the stuff I sell again is disposable and
but you have to
it's
be
pretty low
competitive.
cost.
But
Yeah,
you have
no,
to be
but
competitive,
we are.
right?
I mean, most all of my products are. I mean, if I'm not, let's say I have a product line that isn't competitive, that I'm getting shut out because price is just outrageous, and I don't have clinical reason or a product benefit that would warrant that increase, I'm not going to spend my time selling.
Are there pricing guidelines that you have to follow from the manufacturer where they say, here is what you need to go sell this for? Or do you have like a window to
Yeah,
so say,
sometimes.
hey, like here's our cost. You can $5. You can charge anything above $5. Whatever, you can get people to agree to.
I have had lines like that. I don't currently. So all of my pricing is fixed with the manufacturers I represent now. But I have represented manufacturers in the past where each product will have, a minimum,
Right.
and then you can sell it for whatever you want on top of that. But um, I was so focused, or still am focused on, and it's hard enough to get business and to get a hospital to convert over to whatever they're currently using to your product, that I usually went in with the lowest price I can just to get that
You can't have
business.
price be an obstacle. You just need
Yeah,
to get in the door,
I
right?
wouldn't really had it to where I would make more commission because I was happy to get the business and make whatever commission I was going to make. So we have, I personally, my brother and I personally have such high quotas that we have to hit every year with all these different
Just to
manufacturers,
keep your territory.
just to keep our jobs, just to make sure that they're happy with their current representation in one of arguably the largest medical sales territory of the country. Us, Texas, New York. I mean, those are the so. I mean, they manufacturers that stick with my brother and I are saying that we're the ones that they want representing them in one of the largest medical sales territories in the
Aim of the
country.
crowd.
So it's you have to keep up or they'll find somebody else.
Yeah. Interesting. So are there other people in your space, or does this happen in your space where there's any sort of kickbacks, or are there guardrails on that stuff to prevent people from doing that?
I'm, so I don't have any knowledge of it. But just like you, whatever documentaries I've seen, whatever you think in the back of your mind, I'm sure there's some of that at some level. As a sales rep, um, and for the products that I'm selling, relatively very low cost.
Yeah.
I mean, not, I wouldn't even know how to begin to have one of those conversations. I've never
Well,
had.
and I guess the root of that question is like, even with vaccines, obviously vaccines have worked wonders for mankind, but a perfect example of, okay, this is where greed or, maybe a little poison has entered the system is that the first day you're born, or within the, time frame that you're born, you have to get a Hep B vaccine. So Hep B is a sexually transmitted disease. There's not any babies out there prostituting to pick up Hep B. Why would that be required as a child? And I say required, because vaccines are pretty much forced on us. I mean, you have this authority figure saying, like, here are the vaccines that, we will be blah, blah, blah. They don't necessarily say, hey, are you for this? Or are you against this? What are your thoughts? It's, hey, here's the schedule of vaccines. And they don't really explain that you have a choice or
Yeah, they don't.
whatnot. And if babies are getting Hep B vaccines, a sexually transmitted disease, the parents don't have it. I can't think of any reason to do that other than money. And maybe I'm wrong because I'm ignorant, but my Indiana brain cannot find any sort of reason for that. And I'm sure that is one of 1,000 examples in the healthcare space.
Semi-ignorant to it too, other than the fact that I've had two children that I have vaccinated. You can, as a parent, choose to vaccinate or not vaccinate, or choose which vaccinations you want your child to have. So if you don't want them to have a Hep B vax, I don't, from my understanding, they don't have to. They do have to have certain vaccinations to attend public school. If that's one of them, then you can either choose to not do it and homeschool, or you can do it and have them go to public school.
But I think most of those make sense, right? Like the polio
Yeah.
vaccine,
And
the
then measles,
measles,
mumps,
mumps.
rubella. Yeah.
Yeah, like I understand that there are some on that list I do not understand.
Sure.
And again, this is not about vaccines. It's about I'm sure that streams into every other aspect of healthcare. And I guess my curiosity is how doctors are making money, and then you can identify their incentives. And then if you know how they are incentivized, then you can judge their decision making,
Yeah. I
right?
hear
And,
you.
and you have to be educated
I'm
in their
curious too.
incentives.
Yeah, I rarely,
But is there any of that in the medical device stuff? Like,
it's not that I've been a
okay,
part of, not that I even had the opportunity to do. I mean, I rarely sell to a doctor, to an actual physician. I rarely sell any of my stuff to them. I'm usually selling to a department director or supervisor or something. Because again,
and they're in charge of just making sure that they're fully stocked on the necessary
yep,
equipment,
yep, they're in
on the
charge.
disposables. But you also sell like some bigger equipment too, right? Not just tissue paper.
I do sell some equipment, but like for instance, one of the products that I enjoy selling, it's a piece of equipment that's hypothermia system. So it's about the size of a small refrigerator. It's on wheels. It rolls around, and it basically manipulates patient temperature. This company is very good at raising or lowering patients'
It's a hypothermic,
hyper. So it circulates hot
hyper
or cold water
hypothermic.
to raise or lower their temperature. So post cardiac arrest patients, there's a protocol for them to be cooled, right? You cool them down. You bring their core temperature down to like 33.5 degrees C, and you keep them there for 72 hours.
What is that F?
There's a button on that machine that goes right back and forth. But Siri could tell us. It's cold. So, I mean, you're normally 98 sick, right? I mean, we don't tolerate temperature very well at all as humans. Like, 90, if you're at 100 degrees, you have a fever, you're laying down, and that's a difference of what, 1.2 degrees. And we don't tolerate temperature very well. Children do better. So for instance, like, so post-cardiac arrest patients, NICU babies, let's say toxic ischemic encephalopathy, something like that.
Is that Spanish?
Basically, it's a newborn is at birth that had lack of oxygen to their brain. So people smarter than me have figured out that you want to cool those kids for a certain amount of time and then slowly rewarm. I mean, half a degree C per hour. So if they're at 33.5, you want to bring them up to 34 at a very slow rate. If they rewarm too quickly, they could have reperfusion injuries and be worse off than before. But a lot of this therapy, a lot of this cooling mixed with other things will give these babies that might have a 5-year-old, 6-year-old capacity their entire life just to be normal, healthy adults. So anyways, that's a piece of equipment that I enjoy selling and that I like selling. But again, there's no meetings or conversations or anything that I've been involved in to nefariously get my equipment in over someone else's. Maybe it's not expensive enough, or maybe I have some morals, but I like I said, I've just never even been in a position to offer something.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess that was what I was curious about. Is there opportunity to be
So, I mean, even if a hospital is replacing all of their hyperhypothermia equipment, you're talking about, under, let's say, under a major medical center, 10, 15 machines. These things cost, let's say, 10 grand. I mean, you're talking about $150,000 thing here. We're not talking about millions and millions of dollars.
so it's not like the pharmaceutical space where, you get the attractive girl in the cocktail dress going to meet doctors and saying that, hey,
You get me.
we need to push 40 milligrams of OxyContin for this, and this, and then you invite them to a meeting in Bermuda. Nothing,
Especially being independent.
and you don't look good in a cocktail dress.
Yeah, I don't look good in the but I would have to, I would front all that. But the things that you're talking about is the company would probably, make those type of deals and all that. I mean, I don't. It's just my brother and I, and we're not sponsoring any trips anyway for
Yeah.
doctors, and we're not usually working with doctors.
So had a great childhood and great experiences in college, and then the pivot point was in a pivot. That's probably the wrong inflection point, I guess, entrepreneurial wise, was when you worked for carpet cleaning service Steve Judge. And it sounds like you had great examples in your dad, your stepdad, and Steve to set you up for success. And then you actually followed through with that, eventually taking over, what your pops was doing. It's interesting. One last question, and then we can wrap this up. But a lot of people that have sat where you're sitting now have said, do what you love, chase your passions and stuff like that. Where I don't agree with that saying. I think people have it backwards. I think that you should get good at something and then you start to love it, right? I use this example on baseball that, you start baseball as a kid, maybe you don't want to play, you don't like it, but your parents make you keep going to practice and playing in the games and you don't like it. And then one day you hit a home run. And then the next game, you make a diving catch. Then the next day you steal a base. And then all of a sudden you love it. You like baseball, right? But you would have never known to chase baseball because you didn't love it before. So I think you should get good at something. Try as many things as you can. Get out there, and then you'll know what to chase because you'll know what you're good at. So I say get good at something, and you'll learn to love it. Is there any advice that you'd give to your kids or anybody watching this? There's going to be millions of people that watch this. So what advice do you have for people that maybe want to start their own business or they're looking for their next job? Do you subscribe to that type of saying, or are you more so on?
I think the ones that can make a living doing what they love is pretty rare, and is, I wouldn't say lucky, but I think it's pretty rare. Like, what I do, I enjoy relative to doing something else. But if I was financially independent and money wasn't a concern, something like that, I don't think I would sell and work another day in my life. Like, I don't do this for the fun, practice, or the love of the game.
Right.
Do this to support my and to pay for all the shit that my daughters and my wife. I do enjoy making sales. I do enjoy my job. I do enjoy making quotas and fulfilling my obligations to my manufacturers. I do get a lot of pride and a lot of joy out of that. However, yeah, I don't think I would continually do this if I didn't have if I was financially in a position where I didn't have to work anymore. I wouldn't do this. So I mean, my advice would be to find something that you can tolerate's the wrong word, something that you enjoy, but I think you're going to be looking a long time to monetize something that you love. So, I mean, I'm a little apprehensive in telling people to do something you love and you'll never work another day in your life or something, one of those
Chase your
cliches.
passions.
I just, I mean, I love spending time with my family. I don't know how many people are going to pay me to do that.
Right. I love golf, but nobody's going to pay me to watch me golf.
Right.
That's what. Then you just proved my point. You're not good enough. So get good at something, and you'll love that.
Yeah, I mean that's it's good advice if you can get. But in order to golf as an example, you can't just be good. You got to be in the rarest of rare to
Sure.
make it. You have to be exceptional.
I hate the word realistic, but there is an element of real world, real life that you also have to consider, right?
I love what I do because it allows me to support.
There you go. And that is loving what you do.
Yeah, it's a means to being able to support them and navigate them through what needs to get.
Yeah. Okay. So if you had any advice for
Yeah,
anybody,
so advice. So I would say
so
whatever you
what
choose.
guidance are you going to give your daughters when they get out of college? They're like, all right, Dad, I'm ready to start working. Like, what's that conversation going to be like?
Yeah, don't um whatever you wind up in, whatever path you take, whatever career you choose, I would say whether you're in love with it or whether it's a means to make money and support your family, or whether it's just a pure passion and you're lucky enough to, I would tell them to not half-ass it and not mail it in. If this is what you're going to do your absolute best at it and give it give it all you can without sacrificing what's most important to you. For me, family. I just don't have the time to not do my job well. Every minute I spend to my job, I want to make it as efficient as I possibly can, because I'd rather be with them. So if it's going to take me away from that, I want to maximize every ounce of it that I can. I am passionate about it, and the fact that for what it provides. So every minute I spend in my business, it has to be utilized to its maximum, I guess. So that's why I wouldn't say don't get a career and half-ass it and just get through the day and try to make it towards the weekend, because you'll be miserable and you won't get nearly what you want out of it. If you'd rather be doing something else, whatever that would be, the time that you're taking away from what that is, just give it everything you can, because it'll allow you to have more moments of doing the things you want.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, I can subscribe to that for sure. Okay. Well, if I assume you're always prospecting.
Sure. Yeah. I don't want it to be hard to get a hold of me.
How do people get a hold of you?
For the most part, it's cell phone and email. I mean, if you're a sterile processing department and you're looking for solutions in infection control or storage or transport or clean verification, Healthmark would be the company that you would want to reach out to. And I represent them in Southern California. So, but like
All
I said,
Southern California?
yeah, so it goes, well,
So I actually have a handful of doctors that we work with.
yeah,
I have one, Dr. Kim, and he has, I don't know, maybe a dozen facilities. Maybe I can get you in touch with him.
sure. Yeah. I mean, I'll
He's a
speak
great
with,
dude.
I'm an opportunist. I'd speak with anyone that has interest or questions or opportunities. So any sterile processing departments that are looking for solutions, they're probably well aware of Healthmark already. Any end users, any surgeons or dentists that are looking for magnification or LED headlights, I represent Designs for Vision in Los Angeles. And any ICUs, emergency rooms, or NICUs that are looking for patient temperature management, that would be a company called Gentherm that you would want to reach out to, and they can get with they have all my contact information, and you can give them yours. If you're looking for any type of carts for storage or mobility or emergency crash carts or anesthesia carts or anything specialty carts, that would be a company called Waterloo. And reach out to them, and I will 100% give you a call back and schedule time to meet.
Do you work with A Plus Vision over here? Oh no, that's not it. I mean that's the eye place. What is the dentist over here?
I mean, there's
Do you work with smaller ones or only large
no for
companies?
so
Like
for magnification, surgical loops, like the glasses with the telescopes. Right? Your dentist probably has them, and your surgeons probably have them. So those, when I told you earlier that I rarely work with end users, that's the one line that I represent. That's kind of solely who I only work with, because I have to measure their eyes, their working distance. They have to choose the right magnification. There's a lot of
so you do work
unique.
with optometrists?
I don't work with optometrists. I work with
Just
surgeons
dentists.
and dentists.
Okay.
And dental students and the end users. So the optometrist is going to give them like their prescription or their eyeglasses. I'm going to take that prescription if they have one and build that into their loop.
Okay. So you don't sell the machines that spit air in your eye.
No,
I hate that machine. Whoever invented that, I hope the worst for that person.
It's funny, yeah.
It's horrible.
I tell people that too when I'm measuring their eyes. I'm like, don't worry, there's no big burst of air that's going to come out.
I hate that machine. I hate it. I've always hated it.
So yeah, if you're looking for that in the LA area, I would be your rep. Designs for Vision.
Cool, man. You're on LinkedIn?
Yes.
Ty Bolles.
Absolutely.
TYBOLLES. We'll put your link in the description of the video. But thanks for coming on Strong Like Cool, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, this was fun. I appreciate it.
All right, dude. Good work.
Yeah.